Hello, everybody, and welcome to Queen Storytellers, Episode 6. I am your host, David Lawson. This week, as we have for the past 5 weeks before this, we have 5 great writers and performers from various disciplines of writing and performing coming on here, performing true stories from their lives that actually happened to them. This show is presented by the wonderful folks at the Queen's Theater. So let's get to it. Who are our 5 performers this week? Well, I'm glad you asked. First up this week is Jude Treder-Wolff. She is a creative artist therapist and has been for quite some time, which is interesting because she is going to be telling a story about being a patient when she was at therapy and the therapist fell asleep in the middle of their session. Quite a perspective from a little therapist on therapist story there. After Jude is Andrew Sanford, who was recently featured on the CW TV show Mysteries Uncoded. Andrew is going to be performing a story about pretending to be drunk in high school in an effort to be cool. Lord knows we all tried a number of reasons to be cool in high school. That's certainly one avenue to take, Andrew. Coming up after Andrew is Alexander Scott, who runs a production company called Your Town Is Next. They have produced things from comedy sketches to campaign videos, and that's really the whole gamut you could run, folks. Sketch to campaign videos. Alexander Scott is going to be performing a story about one of the old-time great New York City street hustles, the broken bottle scam. Coming up after Alex is Natalie Perlin, who just back at the 2019 New York Comedy Festival was named by the judges at that festival as a comic to watch out for. Natalie's going to be performing a story about falling in love with your driver's ed teacher. Our final performer this week is Ava Davis, who performs sketch comedy with the Atlanta, Georgia comedy company Critical Crop Top. Ava is going to be telling a story about being live on an NPR show and revealing something to the world that she had never revealed to anybody else before. And yes, her family was listening. So that's what you have to look forward to on this episode of Queen's Storytellers. If you like what you see, then please go to queenstheater.org, where you could see all kinds of great programming that Queen's Theater is rolling out, including other episodes of the show you're watching right now, Queen's Storytellers. Or you could go on Facebook and give a click of a like to Queen's Theater. That's theater with an R-E. I'm your host, David Lawson, and as always, I'm so excited to present these 5 writers and performers performing these 5 fantastic stories for you good folks watching at home this week. So let's get to it. Enjoy this episode of Queen's Storytellers.
I'm in the waiting area outside my therapist's office, and she's running a little bit late, and I normally would feel impatient, but today I feel really impatient. I feel much more jacked up than usual. I'm on some infertility drugs that make all of my emotions immediate and intense, and I often don't feel like I have a lot of control over them. And I have so many things that I want to talk to her about. She's been helping me for the last 6 years as I've been going through this infertility journey. And I have what's called unexplained infertility, but it's not just unexplained, it's inexplicable. My mother had 11 pregnancies. I have 8 siblings. I have 42 first cousins. I was an aunt in 3rd grade. Every memory I have of my family life, I am surrounded by babies, holding a baby, and my image of myself as an adult has always included being a mother of 3. And I've created my entire adult life and my marriage around the idea of raising those 3 kids. I have a big professional life. I've organized it so that I can take time off and schedule my life to raise my kids, to break it up with my husband. Everything is in place to raise a family except the actual family. And now I'm going through life. I'm at age 39 with doctors having me on these hormones that make me feel so emotional about absolutely everything, especially anything remotely pregnancy related, like the sight of a Toys R Us or a baby dill, because it looks like a fetus. And they talk about my uterus like it belongs in a museum. I got so much to talk to Danielle, my therapist, about. Well, the door opens, she lets me in, and she's a very grounded, sort of Mother Earth character herself. She's got this persona where she's kind of like the really professional lab technician that's giving you the lab results and everything is going to be okay. That's the energy of her. So she sits down, I sit down, I say, finally, after all these years and all these tests, I finally have a diagnosis for my previously unexplained infertility. And she says, go ahead, tell me. And I say, well, it turns out that my body is allergic to sperm. My body paralyzes sperm. Basically, I'm a sperm killer. That's what it means. And she says, oh, so how are you feeling about this information? And I say, I feel good. Finally, because I have a diagnosis, they can treat it. They're going to put me on steroids to reduce my body's response to sperm. They can do something about this now. Finally, that's specific to my body. And Danielle's very quiet. And she says, well, I have some experience in this area. And I can tell you that women with this condition have about a 7% chance of ever conceiving, even with all the treatments, and an even lower percent chance that you can see a pregnancy through and your body won't reject it. Maybe it's time to think about some other roads to go down for your life, or to how to create your family. And of course, because I'm so emotional, I feel spiked immediately, and I say, oh, I see. So you can't even give me a minute to have some hope, just a little bit of hope. And she says, of course I want you to have hope. And I want you to think about, there's lots of ways to be happy in life and lots of choices for you if this doesn't work out. And maybe it's time to start talking about all that. And I go from 0 to 10 and I say, you know what? Maybe I am a sperm killer, but I'm not a killer of other people's dreams. And she says, I know you're angry, and maybe you think you're angry with me, but this is probably just angry with this situation. I go, oh no, I know what I'm angry about. And I get up and I walk out, something I've never done in my life. And then I fire Danielle over the phone because I'm not a monster. And then I call a therapist in Brooklyn Heights that I read about in New Age magazine. Her name is Brenda. She's a mind-body infertility specialist. And this long feature article about her, she claims that we can use mind-body treatments to resolve infertility, and that she has a 96% success rate. So I call Brenda from Brooklyn Heights, and she sounds like everything you would expect a therapist you find in New Age magazine to sound. Namaste. Thank you. I'm honored that you're letting me go down this infertility journey with you. Now, this is how it works with me. I'm going to send you an in-depth and very rich intake form that I would like you to respond in writing a week before your first appointment. I'm going to ask you questions that no one has ever asked, probably in all of this time. Also, my fee is $150 for a 45-minute session, and your first session is required for 2 hours. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Please fill out the form. Namaste. I honor your journey, and together we're going to get you a baby. And she's so chill, and I'm so jacked up that I just can't wait to meet her. So I fill out the intake form, and it does ask me all these questions about my mother's pregnancies, my grandmother's pregnancies, all of my history, and things that I can't wait to talk about and no one's asked about before. I go to Brooklyn Heights for my first appointment, check in hand, because she doesn't take any insurance. And I get to a big iron gate where there are not one, but two, but three buzzers. I buzz 3 buzzers. She finally clicks me in. Then there's a circuitous walk with shrubberies all around. And I get to this front door, and I buzz the front door, and I hear click, 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 click. 5 clicks. There are 5 locks on this door. And as the clicks are going, I'm thinking, wow, for a person who sounded like the most relaxed person I've ever met, she certainly seems very worried about security. Anyway, she opens the door, and there she is, looking like Stevie Nicks. All she needs is a tambourine to go right on stage, just flowing white hair, a diaphanous dress that makes her seem almost goddess-like. And she says, namaste, welcome to my space. And I honor your journey, and we're going to go into my office, and which is at the very end of my apartment. And we're going to begin our work right away. I've gone through your intake. And she kind of floats down this hallway that is very curvy. And I just follow her. This is a very complex apartment. And now I'm thinking she's not so much relaxed, maybe, as she is stoned, possibly. But I'm in. And I get in her office, and she sits down, and she says, after reading through your intake, I know exactly where our work has to begin. Now, you explained in there, you described that when your sister was born, when you were 3 years old, or nearly 3, your mother was paralyzed for almost a year after giving birth. Is that correct? And I say, yes, that is correct. And it's true. My mom had my sister when I was 2.5, and she was paralyzed for the whole year after that baby was born. And I have vague memories of it, and I don't know that I ever understood what happened to her or why she was paralyzed. She recovered after a year, and it never happened again. But it did happen. And Brenda says, do you see the parallel? Your mother was paralyzed, and you paralyzed the sperm. Do you see? This is your body's response. Your body remembers the trauma of your mother being paralyzed, and it paralyzes the sperm because you're so terrified of becoming pregnant. And I think, oh, no one ever did make that connection before. That's astonishing. How come nobody ever even asked me about this before? It sounds a little crazy. Go on. And then she says, what we're going to do today is we're going to release the toxins of those fears that you've been carrying in your body for all these years. We're going to release those toxins so that you will be free. And she takes out these bats. They're plastic bats, about a yard long each, with styrofoam handles. Orange bats. And she goes over to the futon that's across the room. And so my back is to her seat, which is across the room. And she starts thwacking the futon. And she says, when you hear the sound of these bats hitting the futon, thwack, you begin to release the toxins, and you begin to tap into the rage that you felt over what happened to your mother and the fear that you feel. And she's hitting thwack, thwack. And I'm thinking, I don't feel angry about my mother being paralyzed. I don't remember feeling anything except being worried or a little bit scared. I was a kid. I remember the wheelchair. I remember her being fed, but I don't remember any of these feelings. It doesn't matter. They're in there. They're in your body. So I take the bats. I'm like, okay, I'll try. And I'm like, oh, damn it. Oh no, I'm so angry. I'm so angry. And I feel totally fake. But the more I do this motion, I'm doing this hitting motion and the thwacking sound, my body, because of the hormones, I guess, starts to really tap into what I am angry about. I am angry. I'm angry about this going on for 7 years and every treatment making me sick. I'm angry about not being able to achieve a pregnancy. I'm angry about how expensive all of it is. I'm so angry. I'm angry. And I'm saying that I'm so angry. It's not fair. Thwack, thwack, thwack. And now I'm screaming. I'm so angry. It's not fair. And I'm thwacking the futon. And then I turn to look at Brenda, like, am I doing all right? And I look, and there's Brenda. She's just out. She's not only sleeping or passed out, there's a little drool coming down out of her. She's been out the entire time that I've been screaming on the other side of the room. And I'm so disoriented by the sight of this. And my emotions now shift around, and I'm like, what? Brenda, are you okay? Are you all right? And she wakes up. And the worst thing about it is she just starts talking like she never know, and you're so angry and you have so many toxins in your body and we're releasing the toxins. And I now see her as, I don't know what's going on with her, but I'm not buying this, and I just want to leave, just want to get out of here. I don't believe what's happening, but I can't get out of here. Oh, I don't want to pay her, but I pay her because I can't figure out how to get out of this apartment. I don't know where I am. So I pay her this massive amount of money, well, $300 for a 30-minute session, get on the train. I'm coming back to Long Island, and I'm thinking, she may claim a 96% success rate, but I can say I am 100% certain that the reason my body is allergic to sperm or tries to paralyze it is not because my mother was paralyzed when I was a kid. I know that's not true. And I can't believe what I just did and what I paid for because in pursuit of this one dream. And I didn't want to tell anybody about it, but I know that I want to talk to Danielle about it. I really know she'll get it, and we'll maybe even laugh about it. And I know that Danielle is right, that it's time to rethink this whole thing that I'm doing. And in fact, I did stop taking the hormones at that point, and I did not pursue in vitro fertilization, which was what I was on my way to. And I began to think about giving life to different dreams, to different paths from different parts of myself that wouldn't be possible if I did have a child. And I was really happy to have somebody to work that through with, and that was Danielle. I really miss Danielle, and I appreciate Danielle, and I'll always love Danielle because Danielle took my insurance. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you to the Queen's Theater. Thank you for having me for this. I'm going to tell a little story about myself in high school because those are always the best stories. So I am and always have been a bigger person, not just shape-wise, but in how I present myself. I was the kind of kid where if you see pictures of me when I'm little, it's always doing this kind of like ta-da thing. Everybody's standing normal. Everybody's smiling. We're at a funeral. Everybody's sad. And I'm just like, hey, like really, really getting in there. And that's just kind of how I've always been. And it wasn't until I hit middle school that I really found an outlet for that. And that outlet was theater, specifically at the time, musical theater. I'm not as much into musical theater anymore, at least not as a performer. I am not what you would call a singer. I think my wife puts it the best. I can carry a tune, but you're not gonna rely on me for a big belty number, to say the least. But when you're in middle school and you're louder than everybody else, it really doesn't matter if you can sing. If you can get up there and not be embarrassed, you're gonna do okay. Like, it's gonna be fine. You might even stand out a little bit. And that's what happened for me in middle school. I got to have this outlet where I not only got to be as big as I wanted to be, but I got to be in this kind of circle of trust with people. It was wonderful. When you're working with people in a lot of different circumstances, there's trust, but in theater, you really need that trust for safety, for performances, so people can really let themselves out and perform. And that's what I found, and it blew me away. So I was also not a big rebel rouser, as it were, growing up. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything like that until I turned 18 and left this small town in Massachusetts for the big lights of New York City. There might have been one time where somebody gave me what they said was a shot of Smirnoff something, I think, when I was in a biology class in 10th grade. And I was like, I'll take that, and shot it, and it proceeded to act drunk for a couple of minutes. And then I put my head down, and then by the time I came up, I wasn't drunk anymore. Was I drunk in the first place? No. But you know what? It sold the bit a little bit more. People thought that it was pretty funny. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Fast forward probably to later on that same year. So we're doing a musical right now. I believe it was The Boyfriend, which is probably the simplest, most straightforward musical you could ever see. I played an old man, as any 15-year-old high schooler would at the time. They did some white patches on the side. I wore a plaid suit that was a little too tight because, again, bigger person. And I, went about being as big and British as possible. That's the other thing for high school theater. If you can do a British accent, you're already like a cut above most people because they're going to rely on that quite a bit. So we're doing that musical, right? And we got time after school before the rehearsal started. And I got to go home. Now, I had to walk up a hill and through a back path, often in the snow, to get to my high school, just like the old person that I was playing. I got to tell those kind of stories. Up a hill, through the snow, up a back path that was barely cut out for people to walk through. So I went home. And when I came back, I had a 2-liter bottle of Coke that had maybe about like this much, maybe about a fifth left in it. Again, bigger person. It didn't start with a fifth, but I was knocking back that soda because water was just not even in my purview at that point. So I'm walking up this back path and I chug that soda because I'm alone and I think it's hilarious. And when I do that, I think, I think that's how people drink, right? That's how loosely connected I was to it. I was like, that's how people drink alcohol. They just chug it back real quick from a giant bottle. What if I act drunk again, but just off this soda, right? What if I go into this rehearsal and I pretend to be something that not only am I not, that I have never been in my 15, maybe 16 years of existence? So that's what I do. I pretend to be drunk and I go into this rehearsal and almost immediately tell somebody because nobody was really going to notice. They were rehearsing. They were trying to get this show going. It was maybe going to go up in like 2 weeks. And I thought, I'm going to play up this angle. I'm going to work this. So I pretend to be drunk. I tell a friend who I consider to be somebody who would spread it very quickly. And that's exactly what he did. Suddenly, it became known through the annals of the backstage, annals, you know what I mean. Backstage, it became known that Andrew was drunk. Someone who did not hang out with people after rehearsals at cast parties. I cannot emphasize enough how little I did, how little life experience I had, you could say. But again, 16, not my fault. But to pretend to have that life experience was my fault. And I pushed through this rehearsal. Oddly enough, I didn't mess up anything. I was still of the mind that I hit all my cues. I went out when I was supposed to. Nobody caught on to the fact that I would be backstage, stumbling, walking around like a Disney cartoon, and then suddenly would perfectly hit my marks out onto stage, and then exit off stage, right back to stumbling and burping big bubbles. Nobody was any wiser to the fact that I was not drunk whatsoever. Until a little bit later. So we get backstage. People are still getting a kick out of it. The rehearsal is over. We're changing out of costumes. And I stand up on a chair. I get right up on a chair and I strike a classic ta-da pose. And I go, I'm king of the world. I made a Titanic reference. Okay? I said, I'm king of the world. And then I proceeded to fall off of the chair. And this was at a time where I wasn't trying to do a safe pratfall or a safe drop. I fell right off of this chair onto my back, went down. People crowded around me because they were nervous. And I hopped right up, did another ta-da, and they're like, are you okay? Andrew, are you okay? You just fell down really hard. Are you like, how are you going to get home? Who's going to get you home? And I was like, oh, I wasn't drunk. I was just joking. I wasn't really drunk. I just drank some soda on the way in. I wasn't nothing. I can still see in my eye, in my mind's eye, this look of disappointment on people's faces. Not because I didn't drink or even that I necessarily was pretending. It was that I had broken this circle of trust. There was a moment there where people were genuinely concerned for me, even though nothing was wrong, and I reveled in that concern. I soaked it in and used it to push this bit farther. And I don't think I got a lot of those people's trusts back. I was in 10th grade at the time. They were maybe somewhere in 11th grade. Some were seniors that were graduating that I have never seen since, that wouldn't talk to me for the duration of the show, or if I saw them in the hallway, or some of them, if they did talk to me, things were different. And I've always tried to consider myself being like a comedian or a funny person. I think probably at the time I was like, oh, this is like an Andy Kaufman bit. Not thinking about how most people personally felt about Andy Kaufman a lot of his life. People don't love to be messed with. People don't love when you break their trust like that, especially if they know you and they have an amount of concern for you. And I learned a lot from that. I'm not big anymore. I'm still a big person. I'm still a loud person. Most people will tell you that I will try to dominate a conversation in a group more often than not. But I learned that things aren't funny if people can't trust you. If you can't lead them safely to the end of something, they're not going to want to go on that ride. They're not going to want to put a faith in you and a trust that is needed when you want to perform for people. And it was also a very good lesson to not test out bits on people. Anybody who's ever known a stand-up comedian in their life knows nothing's more annoying than somebody testing out a joke mid-conversation. Well, you also don't want to do that when physical health is on the line, when you have people who really wanted to believe in you and wanted to like you and wanted to trust you, and then you find out that they can't. So thank you so much for listening to me today. And hopefully I've earned some of your trust.
Hello, I'm Alexander Scott, and I'm going to tell you today about bottle scams. What is a bottle scam? Well, a bottle scam is an easy con in which a grifter starts walking toward you, the mark, and seemingly innocuously, accidentally bumps your hand. And in doing so, drops a very expensive object, let's say a $100 bottle of wine. The grifter then becomes very indignant and starts demanding recompense, even though the bottle itself is maybe a $5 bottle of Sparkletini. Now, the beauty of the scam is that, one, it's very adaptable. It doesn't have to be wine. It could be jewelry, could be medication, could be eyeglasses. And it preys on a sucker's sense of empathy and fair play. So how did I get suckered? Well, I'm out one Friday night back in 2007, a good friend of mine, Kevin. We're on 42nd Street in Manhattan, and we're walking toward Times Square. And nothing, it's empty. It's so barren. There's nobody around, no pedestrians, no cars are driving by, no cops, which is preferable. And as we're walking, we see one guy walking in our direction. Think nothing of it. But as he passes us, I feel the bump. And I hear something clatter to the ground. And so I mutter to Kevin, keep walking. We keep moving. We hear the guy behind us, and he's yelling, hey. We move faster, and he starts screaming, hey. And I tell Kevin, don't stop moving, keep walking, don't stop for anything. And then the guy says, you broke my glasses. And that's when I stop. Because look, I'm a bespectacled American. I understand the trials and tribulations of being forced to walk this earth with these overpriced plastic goggles that you need to function in life. So the last thing I want to do is to make life harder for a fellow Four Eyes. So I stop, and the guy comes up toward us, and he shows us the glasses. And look, folks, I should have known. Because if you've ever dropped your glasses, you know, like the worst that happens, you get a bit of scuffing, maybe the lens pops out. The lens was just cracked, just all across, like maybe it'd been hit by a hammer. And so I should have told this guy, go screw. He asked for $120. And I don't have that money. At the time, I was barely making more than minimum wage. But he's pacing around, and he's like a half foot taller than me. And he keeps clenching his fist, and he's just sitting on a mountain of rage. And so I tell him, look, dude, I don't have $120, but I got 40. Take 40. He takes it graciously. He thanks me profusely. He hugs me, and we part ways. And on the subway ride home, my friend Kevin has to sit through me, just making all sorts of whiny, bleeding heart equivocations. Well, actually, I think I did a really good thing for this guy tonight. I think, you know, like I put some good out in the world. So that happens. 2 years later, I'm walking through Manhattan once again. It's actually now it's a sunny summer afternoon, and I'm going toward my girlfriend's apartment. Well, I think she's my girlfriend. We've been dating for a while, but she won't really acknowledge me as her boyfriend, like in public, and she doesn't like me being around her friends, and she got really upset when I asked to meet her parents. So I don't know, but that's going through my head as I'm crossing 23rd Street near Madison Square Park. And as I'm going across the crosswalk, I see a face coming toward me that looks really familiar. And as he's approaching, I know that face. And then just as I realize who it is, I feel, yeah. So I keep moving. I'm not stopping this time. And I'm going down 23rd Street. I'm walking. He's behind me, and he's yelling, hey. But I'm not falling for it this time. I keep walking. He yells, hey. No, thank you. I keep moving, but finally he catches up to me, comes up from behind, and I just spin around and I say, dude, I'm not falling for it again. You already got me the first time. And that's when he recognizes me. And then it just becomes, oh, hey man, been a long time. How's your friend? And I wish I could say that was, there were more times when our paths crossed, but unfortunately that's where life diverges. Some of us, we grow, we learn, we adapt. Some people just get stuck in their own ways. And so the last time that I saw my friend was in the Daily News, in an article from January 2011. And this is in the Daily News, and so I'm going to have to read it like an old-timey newsboy because that's how the Daily News is written. A hulking scam artist with 41 convictions under his belt was sentenced to 7 years in prison for intimidation ripoff known as the Broken Glasses Scam. Swindler Naeem Jabbar targeted countless victims, many of them tourists, in Midtown over a dozen years. Jabbar would break some cheap glasses, then bump into a mark and drop the frames on the sidewalk. The 6'2" Goliath, I'm 6'1". I swear he was like a half foot taller than me. The 6'2" Goliath would loom over anyone who refused to pay, shouting, cursing, and clenching his cantaloupe-sized fist. These are their words. His latest conviction was for a July flim-flam in which he bumped into a French businessman and demanded $100 for a busted pair of $5 glasses. Jabbar was convicted of felony robbery and fraudulent accosting. His lawyer speculated the jury found him guilty of a felony for the first time merely because of his 270-pound size. So we're body shaming, basically. And to really hit the body shaming right on the head, Jabbar, who had 2 pairs of broken glasses on him when he was busted, was so big his chair at the trial cracked. New York, it's just a small town like any other. But yeah, sometimes you just gotta learn through life. Thank you.
So before COVID-19, I was living in New York, starting to gain some momentum in the comedy scene. I had just performed a solo show. I was given a weekly show at Caroline's on Broadway, and things were really good. And when everything started happening, I have a Jewish mother, so I ended up back in Florida. My apartment lease was up, and I decided to wait it out here with my family, be close to loved ones. I am from Florida originally, but I haven't lived here since I was 16, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but living in New York, I guess I was able to blend in more than here, because in New York, I don't have to drive a car, but nobody really asks if you know how to drive. But my whole life, I have had this like deep secret of being terribly afraid of driving, and I never let it stop me from doing the things I wanted to do. I have always wanted to live in a city with public transportation. I learned how to ride a bike. I am very charming, so I can get rides somewhere if I need to. You know, there's Uber, there's Lyft, I had thought by now self-driving cars, but that hasn't happened yet. But now, being back in Florida for a few months, I realized that it is a big deal not being able to drive down here. And so I really miss doing comedy, and for the first time, there's something that I want to do enough that I am willing to deal with my fear of driving in order to do it. So where I am in Florida, there are 5 comedy clubs within an hour and a half drive. Some of them are dinner theaters, but I'm fine with being the queen of the Southwestern Florida dinner theater circuit. The only thing that stops me from doing that is the Florida interstate. I'm not quite ready for that yet, but I do have my driver's license. I got my driver's license when I was 16. I passed the test, I think, because I was rear-ended during the test, and the driver felt sorry for me. I know the basics. I don't feel confident or comfortable. I know that a lot of people are afraid of flying. I don't think twice to get on a plane. I don't think twice to get in a car with anybody. I don't think twice to hitchhike in the middle of nowhere or to ride on the back of somebody's motorcycle. I trust strangers a lot more than I trust myself. I'll get on a roller coaster being operated on by like a carny, but when it's me behind the wheel, I don't feel safe. And so now that I'm here in Florida, I decided it was time to enroll in driving classes, and I got very lucky, because if there's one person that can help me, it is Tony Robbins, not the motivational speaker. That's also the name of my new driving instructor, who I am in love with. I don't know if it's that I haven't been around a man in months, and sitting next to this man in a car is the closest human contact I've had to somebody in so long. But he is so dreamy, and when I'm in the car with him, I do feel safe. It could be because he has the brakes next to me, but he just has this it's kind of like Burt Reynolds. He just has this like very like sheriff, like law and order kind of energy. He's very calm, but I know that like I know that he has things under control. And if he says that I'm a good driver, then I believe him. I don't believe it in myself, but so we've had 3 lessons and I'm doing okay. We got caught in the rain the first time, and I'm not especially afraid of driving in the rain, and I'm just afraid of driving in general, so it doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing or where I'm driving, I guess, but we're driving and it starts pouring. The kind of rain where we're driving through these deep puddles, we're having to go so slow, and there's senior citizens in their golf carts getting soaked and kids on bikes. Everything's just like pandemonium. It's this quick, sudden rain. And he asked if I felt comfortable just to keep going. And I did. I felt comfortable, and we're driving. And finally it does get too hard. So we go to pull over and we stop at the part of Florida where I am, it's near Sarasota, and this is a place where Amish people come to go to the beach. So there's a lot of Amish people. So we pull over in this Amish restaurant. I'm trying to park the car. I'm not very good at the parking. We go around this restaurant 3 times before I manage to park correctly. By the time I park in there, everybody in the restaurant has stopped what they were doing and is standing in front of the window and clapping for me. So we go into this restaurant and, we're soaking wet from being in the car. Everybody is just like, everybody in the restaurant has stopped what they're doing. We get this like standing ovation, and we go in there and we order some pie, me and Tony Robbins. And I guess in the way that like, I've never let driving stop me from doing something that I didn't want to do. I thought that it was fine, but there's this part of me that tells myself, I'm not smart enough to drive, or I'm not good enough to drive, or like, this is how I'm going to die. I'm going to die behind a car. And that feeling, it's going away. And I used to feel that with comedy, and now I don't as much. So I know that at some point it will be okay. I'm not quite ready for the interstate, but I do think that in a few lessons I will be. And I'm just so grateful that there are driving instructors out there, and I'm gonna try not to let my passion my passion and my just all the things that I think make me a bad driver, like my absent-mindedness and my daydreaminess and my just spaciness and just that stuff that serves me well in other areas of life. And I hope that one day, honestly, that I am rich and famous enough that I never have to drive. I really hate it. I hope that I have a chauffeur. I hope that I have like some like black Cadillac with leopard print interior. But until that happens, I know that I'm going to be able to drive myself around. My mom might have to take me for a little bit, for a few more months, but one day I'm going to be able to hopefully drive me and Tony away into the sunset, him in with this little emergency brake just in case. But I know that I can do it.
All right, so last summer I had the wonderful opportunity to perform in New York City as part of Pride 50 at the invitation of a dear friend of mine, Dominic D'Andrea. And it was a wonderful experience, and it dovetailed nicely into this whole year of change for me, because last year I'd made a promise to myself that I was going to make a short film and I was going to transition. Now, making a short film, that also meant becoming a duchess. And becoming a duchess was a lot easier than transitioning. Like, becoming a duchess, you literally just order some jewelry offline and pop on the tiara and boom, you're a duchess. But transitioning, there's emotional, physical, mental changes that are going on, and then also social changes. And it's just this huge, messy ball that took so many years of therapy working through to get to the point where it's like, I'm going to transition. That was a hard part, but I was in the midst of pre-production on my short film and also becoming the Duchess, because in my short film, my character is a minor local celebrity. And since there was an Instagram account going, I had to turn myself into a minor local celebrity. And that was literally the easiest thing. But the whole transitioning, no, not so much. But I fly up to New York, Dominic picks me up at the airport, and I can tell this is going to be a wonderful time. Now, I need to preface all of this by saying at this point, I decided to transition, but I was not out. I had told a couple of friends, and I was just starting, they were just starting to use the she and her pronouns with me, but it was still, it was just under wraps. My agent didn't know, my family didn't know, my partner didn't know, under wraps. But I get up to New York, and the day that we're going to perform for Pride 50 at Queen's Theater, I tell Dominic because he met me at the airport and he had seen some of the changes. At this point, my hair is getting longer and my nails are painted. And I think when he picked me up at the airport, I had on a full face. And so the morning that we're going to perform, I tell him, you know, I am transitioning. And he's silent for a moment and he asks really amazing, gentle questions. And I tell him the name that I've chosen, Ava, and my last name of Davis, honoring my mom. And it's just beautiful. And then we go to Pride 50 and we go into rehearse and I am put in an all-female cast. And the entire experience was so confirming and probably, it was a life-changing experience for me that I still don't know how to explain it to this day. It was being around so many different races and expressions of gender and sexuality and just this huge pit of welcomingness and affirmingness. And on top of all of that, in two of the plays that I performed, I got to portray Marsha P. Johnson, all on top of just this amazing experience. Like I am just on a radical high. And at the end of it all, Dominic, you know, we're heading home and Dominic tells me, all right, so I need you to stick in town for a few days because we're gonna do a radio interview. And I'm like, that is so amazing, awesome, cool. This is like really exciting. And he's like, it's gonna be about the Pride 50 and what Queen's Theater was doing. And then also at the same time, you know, talking about Marsha P. Johnson, what does it mean for Stonewall after 50 years? And I'm like, this is amazing, so awesome, so awesome. So we're gonna circle back to that whole problem of I've not come out to anyone yet. And in my excitement, you know, my mom's wondering, she calls me and I'm talking to her and I'm like, I need to extend my trip for a couple of days. And she's like, oh, why? And I'm like, I'm gonna be on the radio. Best experience of my life. And she's like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear it. And I'm like, well, don't worry. If you miss it live, then I'm gonna post it on my Facebook. You can catch it there. And, you know, we hang up and then it finally hits me that she's gonna find out. And so is everyone else. And I was okay with that. I had been preparing so much in therapy to get to this point. And it's the preferred way for me actually to come out because it's just like shouting it from the rooftop, like, you know what, I'm trans. And so the day of the interview, you know, Dominic and I are preparing the questions and then we go down and it's this whole experience. We see a couple of famous people. I'm like, oh my goodness. And, you know, we get on the radio and we talk about what it meant for me getting to portray Marsha P. Johnson. And Dominic talks about Queen's Theater and producing all of this and what it means to involve the community and have this really queer-centered space. And I'm just riding on this high and I had the decision to not post it on my Facebook, but I did. And I'm really glad that I did because the year before, I was still in the process of mentally transitioning, and by that point, my hair had grown out a little bit, and my partner and I took my mom and my dad and my brother out to dinner for her birthday. And by this time, I'm not presenting completely male, but I'm not completely female. I'm somewhere in between. It's clear that there's definitely something going on. And at the end of the birthday dinner, you know, we treated my mom and everyone else. And at the end of it, my mom, she hugged me and she just said, I'm sorry if I ever did anything to hurt you. And mind you, coming out as gay was this gut-wrenching process for reasons I'm not going to get into now. But in that moment, I could tell she saw me. So I felt very comfortable that June afternoon posting that interview where I said, you know, as a trans woman, loud and proud on the radio for all to hear. I felt very confident in posting that on Facebook. And I get a call from my mom. And she said she listened to my interview and that she was very proud of me. And we've not talked about the interview, transitioning, any of that since, but that's okay because at the end of the day, she loves me, my parents love me, and I love them. And I know that they see me, and we don't need to have a big, long conversation about it. And something about that, and also becoming a Duchess over the course of making the short film and everything, led to me at the end of the short film finally starting hormones and snowballing what has now turned into whatever I've got going on now. So yes, last year was definitely a big year of change for me.